Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. I'm excited about today's video. It's all about nixtamalization of corn, turning it into nixtamal or hominy, and then we are going to can it. As you all know, we do self-reliance, food security, and emergency preparedness on this channel. And so this really does go to all three. The past couple of months, I have been working on doing a lot of things with this yellow and white corn, and along with my daughter, Cindy. She and I are writing a book on food storage corn, and as we have studied and tried out recipes that are going to be in that book, I am just amazed at what you can do with this corn. And because we have nixtamalized it, the nutrition is way up there. And so I highly recommend yellow corn, white corn, any of the heirloom corns for storage, because they are so versatile and they are so easy to store, and it gives you really good nutrition. So I have started 2 batches last night before I went to bed, and one is the yellow corn, and here is the yellow field corn. This is the way it looks in the package, and it's hard. You can't even bite it. I've tried. And then this is what it looks like, and notice the color change after it has been nixtamalized, and this has been dried in my dehydrator, so that I can then grind this into cornmeal, but it's nixtamalized cornmeal. It is not the regular cornmeal that you can buy in the store. This is nixtamalized cornmeal, and so anything you make with it it's loaded with more nutrition. So I'll talk through the process in just a moment, although we have already done one video on how to nixtamalize corn. So I'm going to give just a brief review here, and then at the end of this video there will be a link to that other video. This is white corn. This is what it looks like right out of the bucket. We got this through Azure Standard, and I highly recommend Azure Standard as a source for both yellow and white corn. This is the white corn nixtamalized and dehydrated, and see the color change. The minute it hits that high alkaline solution, the color changes. The flavor also changes. It's greatly enhanced, and I just absolutely love it. I'm also working with blue corn and pink corn. This we grew, my son and I grew it, well, he actually did most of the work, here on our property about 6 years ago, and I have been saving it because I didn't know what to do with it, and now I do. And then this is some heirloom corn that we recently got, and it says it makes the most delightful pink tamales. So we're going to do just exactly that. Cindy and I are going to do that, and we'll do a video on making tamales a little bit later. So in order to nixtamalize corn, you take this raw corn, field corn, it's yellow corn, and you know, we had one of our viewers said, I can't find yellow field corn anywhere. A lot of times it's not called yellow field corn, but if you get dried corn, that's exactly what it is, unless you go for popcorn. But the dried yellow corn is yellow field corn, and it's called yellow corn on the Azure Standard website. And so then what I do is I put a gallon of water in a stainless steel pot. It can't be aluminum, otherwise the alkaline is going to react with that aluminum. And then to that, I add, to the gallon of water, I add 2 tablespoons of what is called pickling lime. Or if you live in a place that has an aisle where they have Mexican food ingredients, you can find this cal. It's called cal, C-A-L. It's the very same thing. It's calcium hydroxide. Both are. So 2 tablespoons of the cal or the pickling lime in the gallon of water, bring it to a simmer, and then I put 4 cups of this in, and I simmered it. And you cannot simmer it like this. You need to simmer it like this with the lid ajar for about 45 minutes, and then it sits in this water overnight. It has now been sitting there for almost 12 hours, about 11 hours and 15 minutes. So the next thing is to rinse this, and then we're going to get all of the outer covering off so it exposes just this, this pure Nixtamal, it is called, or Hominy. We also know it as Hominy. So the first step is just to drain this off, which I'm going to do just right here. Notice how yellow the water is. And I want you to see how the corn looks all bumpety. That's a lot of that exterior coating that is still hanging around. And so I'm just going to dump that right in. We're going to rinse this. And this was 4 cups of corn. And notice the yellow water coming out the bottom. And I do this with cold water. And then I'm going to dump it in this bowl right here. Fill this with water. And it's rinsed now. I don't have any trouble getting my hands in it. And then what I do is I just take my hands and go like this, rubbing off that exterior layer. The chemical reaction caused by cooking this in the high alkaline water causes a chemical change to happen with this corn. And whereas the nutrition, the niacin mostly, but other things as well, was locked up in the corn and not available to our bodies even after we ate it until after it is nixtamalized. So this nixtamalization releases the nutrition to the inside of the kernel so that when we eat it, we now have that nutrition available to us. All right, now what's going to happen next is I'm going to do both batches. I will do this rinse sequence several times until the water runs clear. Now, in the other video, I go into much more detail on that if you need more detail. When we come back, I'm going to have 2 piles of cleaned corn, the yellow corn and the white corn, and we will proceed from there. All right, we're back. So this yellow corn took many more rinses than the white corn did. I like the flavor of the yellow better than the white at this stage, but they're both going to be really, really good. So the next step is, and we are going to be following from this point on, the USDA guidelines, except that, yeah, I should say the exceptions first, I guess. The USDA has come out with a worksheet or a sheet of instructions for you in case you do not want to use the pickling lime or the cow. And they have a recipe for you to follow that uses baking soda, which is also very alkaline. Now, in their recipe, you don't cook it as long as we did. We cooked it this cooked actually about an hour last night, 45 minutes to an hour, until I can bite into these and they're nice and soft. Well, no, they still have some body to them, but I can at least bite into them easily. Very easy. Unlike when it's at this stage right here. So we've already done that part. So now all we have to do is to heat this up into boiling. We do not need to boil it for 45 minutes to soften it because ours is already softened. But if you do the USDA guidelines for using baking soda, then you will want to cook it that extra 45 minutes to soften it. So I have cleaned these pots. They now have the water in them. I'm just going to dump the corn into the pots, and we're going to put it on the stove and just bring it to a boil until the corn is boiling hot, heated through all the way. Then we're going to drain that water, get it into the jars, and we are going to pressure can it. I'm guessing that we're going to have somewhere between 6 and 8 pints. I am not going to do it in my Presto outside. We will do 1 batch in the Instant Pot Max and 1 batch in the Nesco. I have not shown those 2 canners for a while in processing, so I know some of you who have those canners will be delighted that we're going to be using them today for this pressure canning. While I'm talking about canning, let me remind you that our water bath canning class is now open, and you can register at any time, and the link for where you go to register is down below, and you can get into the class, and before you pay, you can look at that first lesson, look at that first video, see if it is something that you might be interested in. And then if you opt out at that point in time, perfectly fine. Otherwise, you can go forward and pay for the class and finish it off. And there is a certificate at the end. And I'm getting a few comments coming through, so I'm really delighted about those comments as well. So let's get on with our project today. Isn't this pretty? I am so sold on corn. I love everything about it. So now this is in the water. And I'll put this over on the stove to boil. And then with the yellow corn, so we'll see you back here when we are ready to get this nixtamal or hominy into the jars. Okay, here we're back, and the corn has boiled for about 10 or 15 minutes. I wanted it to get heated all the way through. Also, I am going to put the link for the USDA directions on how to do hominy because it is not part of the regular book. Now, we have boiled our corn. It is already clean, and our jars are hot right here in this sink of hot water, and we are ready to go. So the corn needs to be drained, and I'm just going to do it this way. It is very important that you read the instructions for your canner, regardless of what it is, so that you can put the right amount of water in the bottom. The NESCO calls for 2 quarts of water in the bottom, and I already have that in there. Okay. And wiping the rims. Now this hominy or nixtamal looks different than that you buy in the store. And that is because what you buy in the store, commercially produced, is made by a field corn that is much larger, wider than this field corn is. And so it comes out looking much fatter. So I'm going to come around and we're going to start this canner. Already with the water in it, locking in place and making sure that, or this pressure regulator is in the exhaust mode, so it's going to release steam for 10 minutes. And this canner counts that down, which is good. Now for pints, for hominy, or for this nixtamal, we're going to do 60 minutes of time. So we're going to put it on high. And we are going to plug in the time for 60 minutes. And we are going to start. And this will tell us this has to heat up everything. And once it starts releasing the steam, then this will show 10, and then it will count down 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it will beep at us. And then I will come and move this now to close the inner compartment so the pressure can now build and build up the pressure that is needed. And then it will start counting down the 60 minutes of time. So this one is set and ready to go. Let's get the others ready. There is no water in the bottom because the instructions for the Instant Pot Max say to fill the water after the jars are in and bring the water about halfway up where the jars are. So if you can look at that, that didn't even come close. So I'm putting more in. Okay, that's good enough. I am not going to pressure cook like I have made that error sometime. I am going to go to canning. I want my pressure on max. And so then I'm going to set my time for 60 minutes. And that is 1 hour. And so we are ready to go. I have everything in order. And start. Internal temperature is 95. I love this one because I can monitor the temperature and I can see that it gets up above 140 the whole time. So both canners are now going. We're about now 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours away from these naturally cooling down, and then us after processing, and then we will take them out and see what we've got. So I'm excited, and I will see you then. Both canners have cooled down on their own, but we have had a couple of problems. And you know what? That happens in canning. So I'm just going to talk you through it, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do about the situation. First of all, we had this canner finish quite a bit sooner than the Instant Pot Max. And so these jars have been out for a half an hour. But instead of doing my fingernail to test, I want to do it with a spoon. Somebody jokingly said, it's a good thing you have good fingernails so that you can check your jars. Well, in case people don't have fingernails, you can use a spoon. So I hope you can hear that difference. This one is not sealed. And that's a little troubling to me because it's been a half an hour. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one and put it in the refrigerator. Sometimes when a jar is being a little bit stubborn, if you put it in the refrigerator, the food contracts more quickly on the inside as it cools, and it will pull that vacuum in. So I'm going to do that. Now the second thing about this you may notice is it doesn't look to me like there's any water, any of that boiling water left in these jars. The corn has absorbed it all. Now this also happens to my beans. And I know that the USDA says that there needs to be at least half the water in there, and yet I can't figure out how to do that with beans because this always happens to my beans, and now it has happened with my corn. There was plenty of water in there, so the corn is very wet, just like my beans are very wet. And I have left my beans alone for years, and when I open them up, even though there's very little water, if any, left in, it's become starchy, and this is a starch food as well. And so it's like there's no liquidy liquid left. I'm going to just leave these alone. I'm going to watch them carefully. I want to show you the canner so that you can be assured that there was really no siphoning whatsoever. So the water is all there. It has just been absorbed by the beans. So the Instant Pot Max just finished. So I'm going to move the scanner aside. And I'm going to move the Max over. I don't know what we're going to find. Maybe we'll find the same thing with the no siphoning but all of the water absorbed. By the way, I would never move a canner if it was still pressurized. This has no pressure in it whatsoever. So it was safe for me to open. Okay, so here goes. Pretty much same thing. But they're beautiful. This looks more like the hominy we are familiar with, and most hominy is made from white corn. All right, let's take a look at the water here. And it looks like there was just a little bit of siphoning, unlike the yellow corn. So we have our hominy. Can't get that word right. We have our hominy or our nixtamal, and I'm very pleased with this. We'll be able to open this and use it in soups and stews. We can also grind it using my wet grinder and make grits with it, or even make masa with it. because in order to make masa, you have to have nixtamalized corn or it just doesn't work. So this has been my first effort in canning hominy. I've learned some things. One more thing that happened to the Max is that I don't sit here and watch it every single minute, but I walk through the kitchen, and every time I walk through the kitchen, I checked both canners. At one point in time when it was almost up to 240 degrees, I came through and I had an error. It had lost pressure. I have no clue why. That has never happened to me before on the Max. So I simply unplugged it, plugged it back in, started the whole session over again, and it was right back up to temperature and processing in about 10 minutes. So I know I lost at least 10 minutes, but probably not more than about 15 or 20. Doesn't matter. I started all over again. So I know that these are safe because they have gone through a full process. You just don't take any chances. So that is my story for the day and our adventure with pressure canning hominy or nixtamal. Thanks for being with us, and we will see you again at our next video.